Up next on Inside the SCCA, Club Spec. Why, how, and how much? Welcome to this episode of Inside the SCCA. I'm Brian Bielanski, and having with me today a frequent guest on the show, Heyward Wagner. Welcome, my friend. How are you?
Happy to be here. Was I guest one?
Two.
Guest two.
You were guest two, and we're going to have guest one back on the show. Jason Pribble was guest one, and he is doing big things. One of our young drivers who's got some stuff going on next year, so we're going to bring him back and get an update. You were number two. You were the first guest from...
I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
But it's not a new title for me.
Yeah, it's the story of my life, so don't feel bad. But you were the first member of the national staff to be on the show. And I would venture to say that without your support, this show might not get to episode 138, which is what we're doing today, or 139 or something. So, but welcome, and thank you for being here. I know it's late on your coast, but we're going to have a good time talking about stuff nonetheless. So you stuck your foot in it, young man.
Also not new.
No. Actually, when I first met you 3 decades ago, I think you were sticking your foot in it at that point too. So I don't think... Is this your fault?
Well, I guess it depends on the this you're speaking of. Is this the Club Spec this?
Yes.
No, I don't know that it's my fault. This was born out of a solo events board meeting in Dallas, Texas, back in January, and we we also had Mike Cobb there,
right.
Peter Jankauskas, chairman of the board of directors. We had several members of the board in the room, and we kind of had a put all your cards on the table. What could solo be?
Right.
What do we imagine it to be in the future? And what's really interesting is I've been a part of this conversation once before in 2007 when I was working as a contractor for the club. I was in an SCP conversation where we did a slash and burn demonstration. You know, what if we just cut it all down and started over? What it looked like,
right?
And that's kind of where the stock to street tires in stock class thing started from. And we did this again in Texas without a desired outcome, without a trajectory. And one of the things that came out of that was the awareness that SSC had been wildly popular. And we really hadn't done anything with that formula since.
Right.
And why is that?
Right.
And that as street class has evolved, it's become complicated. You know, finding the right shock. We had a protest this year in D Street that we weren't sure if we had the right tools on an autocross pad with 1,300 competitors to be able to measure to make sure we had the compliance we were looking for. And this wasn't a vindictive protest. This was just we'd like to have some clarifications.
Sure.
And so how do you know what the right parts are? How do you know, if you're, I don't know, a dad, a mom, a full-time job, gainfully employed human, and trying to balance all the things in life, and you want to go play with a car.
Right.
How much time do you have to read every forum post to figure out what's the hot setup this year, and then what's this and what's that? So how do we make it easy? How do we package it in a way that makes sense? And I was really, really excited about it. I think a lot of people were. And so we had a staff meeting shortly after to talk about what vehicles could we recommend? What direction we think should go in? And very shortly into that meeting, John Hunter, who manages the time trials program, said, well, could these cars run in time trials? And about 30 seconds later, the Club Spec concept was put together. And so I can't say that it's my fault. I can't say that it's my idea. I think it's a really fun concept. I really enjoyed working on it as a project. And I think it's something that can be really revolutionary for the club. The idea that, we're not really, you might have to bleep some of this out. We're not really building this for the most pointy-end, hardcore competitive people on the planet.
Wait, what, huh?
Yeah, I know. It's sacrilege. Um, the goal here is to get really great cars in the hands of people who want to do a lot of things with them. And
Right.
I think we're off to a pretty good start with that.
So, for those who might not know, because we've kind of tap danced around it, we're talking about Club Spec tonight. And there's a lot that I'm excited about this class. But I'll be perfectly honest with you, and you've probably heard me say this 1,000 times before. My first reaction was, WTF, do we need another effing class? Or classes?
Oh, no, we don't need another one. We need the right ones.
and so I said the same thing about Spec MX-5, which is now a national class next year. But I think you just said something without me prompting you or asking you. You exactly said what I now have come to believe. We need the right classes. And we need to get rid of some of the wrong classes. And I know
I think
I tick people off when I say that.
I think it's. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. But the fact of the matter is that we have too many classes in almost every form of what we do, whether it be club racing, whether it be solo, whether it be, I don't know much about time trial. But there's just so many classes. It's confusing. It's diluting the competition in a lot of cases. And it's taking track time away from higher subscribed classes. And everybody, honestly, not just higher subscribed classes, it's taking track time away. So then Club Spec comes up, and I'm like, what are they doing now? And then I started listening to you guys and learning about it. And but so let's get right to the brass tacks. What is Club Spec?
So Club Spec is kind of the intersection of my first race car and motorsports democracy. We started the whole thing with a series of surveys where we asked people, what interested in motorsports. Do they want to do just one program? Do they want to do multiple programs? What programs interest them?
Sure.
What do they want a car that is street driven and track driven? Do they want, what levels of preparation? Do they like limited prep classes? Do they like run what you brung? Do they like spec? And, usually when we do a survey, if we really beat the drums hard, we can get a couple of thousand people to take it.
Right.
And this one, without a whole lot of push, we got about 5,500 people.
Wow.
About 50 to take it. And overwhelmingly, the results were, I want to do multiple programs with my car.
Right.
Which has never been, rephrase that. Once upon a time, to win an SCCA national championship, you had to run track events, you had to run road rallies, you had to run hill climbs, you had to run road racing, you had to do all kinds of stuff to win a national championship.
How long ago was that?
That would have been the mid to late 50s and early 60s, before the birth of the runoffs.
Right.
But since then, we've become, you have cracked open so many cans of worms, and I'm trying to stay on topic, but we have become the dark forest of motorsports rabbit holes, and you can call that class proliferation, you can call that any number of things, but the reality is, if you want to be really relevant in SCCA as a driver, with precious few exceptions, you're going to build an extraordinarily narrow use vehicle. And you're going to try to excel with it. And when it fails, you might be really mad at it. You might not enjoy that car. It might be completely disposable to you if it doesn't achieve the goal.
Right.
And that's not I don't think that's a common attitude amongst enthusiasts. I think that that's a very fringe attitude amongst enthusiasts. I think most driving enthusiasts, wait for it, just like to drive.
Right.
And SCCA offers a bunch of great programs to just go and drive and have fun in, whether it's autocross or time trials or track night or track events or road rally or even maybe rallycross. So how do we build a pathway that gets people from, I really want to do this, to doing it?
Right.
How do we find something people want to do? Got it. And how do we remove the steps?
Right.
And so that's kind of the genesis of this, is how do we make it as easy as possible to get engaged in a competition program and have a car that you're going to love.
Right.
That's there are organizations out there that have less steps. It's easier to get to build the car.
Right.
but we really wanted to have a kit that people would just absolutely love driving.
Right. So I've been doing this not much longer than you, because you started really young.
We both did.
I'm not saying that you're old and decrepit like I am, but in the 38 years or so I've been doing this, all of my conversations, informal of course, I don't have the benefit of 5,500 surveys. People want to race, 1. People want to race with a bunch of other people, 2. People really would like to be competitive in the car they're racing in, 3, although that's a little not as important to some as others. And 4, most people would not like to have to mortgage their house to do it. Okay. And this is an opportunity to do a lot of that, against with hopefully big fields, because you've got two cars that we're going after here to start with. And the cost is, we're going to get to cost, but in the grand scheme of the world of motorsports, there are, yes, cheaper ways to do things, but it's still not on the high dollar side of putting together race cars. And the best part, I think, from the whole process is going back to your surveys. A lot of the times I feel like over the years the club's made a decision and done it. This time the club went to the membership and asked them what they wanted. And here's something else. Here's the crazy part of that. You actually did what they wanted.
Well, it's actually even more unorthodox. We went beyond the membership.
Oh, no.
We got about 25% of our survey results from people who weren't members.
Oh, okay.
And I think that's really important, because if we're going to be attractive to the outside world, we need to be looking beyond our fences. I got a little sidetracked before. I'll do that from time to time. But we did the first survey, and all we asked about cars was, if we did a spec car, what would excite you?
Right.
And of course, we got every imaginable answer. Quick shout out to your most recent guest. The Crown Victoria did quite well in that. But really, there were 5 or 6 that rose to the top.
Right.
And, not surprisingly, Miata, Twin, Mustang, Civic Si, and Boxster Cayman were kind of the top 5. And so we built another survey, and we asked people specifically which ones were they interested. And we expected to see the numbers of respondents go down dramatically. About 1,000 people of the 5,000 said they prefer spec motorsports. So if we get those 1,000 to tell us which car they like best, then we probably have a car that we can go with, and let's see how that looks. Turns out we got 3,500 or so to respond to that survey.
Wow.
And the results were really clear. MC Miata was just miles ahead of the next closest car. The next closest was actually the Twin, but we have that already activated in SSC.
Right.
And so right behind that was the S197 Mustang. And so that's how we got to it. Or that's how we got to the chassis. And of course, all of this was done in partnership with the Solo Events Board, the Time Trials Board, and looking at the data with them and making sure that, the Solo Events Board played a really big part in kind of helping us get to the right Mustang, the right years, the right packages, all of those things, and whatnot. So yeah, that's how we got to chassis.
Right. And full disclosure, one of my choices made the top 5, but did not make the final cut. And because you and I are both Honda guys, and I was really hoping that the Civic would be part of this. But
I got to tell you, it is really tough to navigate this process when neither of the chassis are ones you've ever owned, and so it's been it's been tough.
Well, and I completely understand the love that is shown to the Mazdas. And kudos to Mazda for generating that and watering that flower bed for the last 20 years, 25 years. People understand now, I think, very, very clearly that the people at Mazda have made a commitment to this club and amateur motorsports, and they get rewarded in this process by being chosen as one of these cars. And I like the fact that you didn't poll the manufacturers about what they wanted us to do with this. This came from those surveys, and I don't think anybody should be surprised that something from Mazda made this list. And the more that I hear about the NC, it makes just complete sense.
The NC is just such. I've not owned one. I've had the pleasure to drive many, and it's just a dream to drive. It's a very very comfortable daily driver. It's a very capable track car, and I think it's a really great autocross car. And the fact that it is, I said on Grassroots the other night that the fact that it's the fourth most popular, the fourth best Miata, also means it's the fourth best sports car of the last 25 years.
Sure.
I should probably give a nod to the S2000. I should probably acknowledge that as being in the running.
Yeah.
But that notwithstanding, it's just, there was a lot of eye roll. Of course, SCCA picked a Miata. Of course, right. SCCA picked a Miata. Well, the S and the C stands for sports car. So let's just start there.
Right. And
people who like sports cars. And it just so happens the NC is a very, very approachable sports car.
Was the idea for this, or is the idea for this, to still be a daily driver? Because I got to tell you, when I look at the proposed kits, I mean, if you daily drive in any city in America, the suspension packages on these cars are not how I want to sit in a car between Pasadena and the Peterson Museum, where I essentially work every day in Los Angeles. I'll have a very scrambled egg insides by the time I get to work every day. So is it really the idea to daily drive these?
I mean, I think it depends on where you are in life.
Right.
I daily drive an '89 Civic Si that's on lowering springs and Coney yellows, and
yeah, but you're weird.
And I live in a place where the roads are great, so it works really well for me. A lot of our members drive cars on coilovers every day. A lot of our members drive cars with aero every day. If your passion is I want to have a fun car, I want to be in motorsports, I want to be a part of SCCA. If that's your passion, and you only have ability to have one car, I absolutely think both of these cars are extremely daily drivable by overall SCCA member standards. Now, if I owned one, would I drive it every day? I'd probably drive the Sequoia when it rains. But I think that these are perfectly capable of daily drivable packages.
Hang tight with me here. I have a bit of a technical issue.
Sure.
Stand by. For those who are still watching, stay with me here while I get Heyward back on my screen here. Hold on 1 second. This is really weird. I apologize. Okay, we're back. So, technical difficulties. The Wi-Fi failed. On one computer only. I don't understand it. Anyway, we're back. Thank you. I apologize for all the technical delays at home. To everybody who's watching, thank you very much. And we'll clean this up on the old replay. So it'll be nice and good there. So we were talking about Daily Driver, I think. And the idea is this Daily Driver? And you mentioned that it depends on where you are in life. And I guess that's true. Maybe when I was a lot younger, I would think that would be an okay ride back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, I think for a lot of our members, we have members who drive their STS, their street touring cars on the street. We have members who drive their street mod cars on the street.
Right.
And I think that, if your passion is having a fun car and you only have room in life for one, you're going to pick the funnest one you can.
Right,
and by that standard, I think these are very daily drivable.
Right.
And also, kind of our goal with this, we talked about the surveys. One of the things we asked about in the beginning is comfort zones for initial purchase and comfort zones for modification.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people kind of live in the $10,000 to $15,000 for a fun car initial purchase, and a lot of people live in kind of the $5,000 to $10,000 for aftermarket modifications, improvements, whatnot. And I don't think that we set out to necessarily spend that money for them. That wasn't the goal. But
Right.
The goal was, when we're looking at making decisions of, is this cost appropriate? Does this make sense? We were aiming for a target that the surveys signaled that people were comfortable spending on a secondary car or a third car. So it's not necessarily that we're trying to encourage people to daily drive them. It's more that if you want, you don't need the truck and trailer to get the car to the event. You
Right.
don't need to,
Right.
to invest in that much infrastructure. It is very capable to get you there.
Was if the choices that had come out of the survey been cars that were less plentiful, would that have been a consideration? Because the two platforms that have been chosen, they're everywhere. There's plenty of them out there. But if they would have, if the surveys would have come back with something more obscure or something that didn't have quite the love, like let's say they said it was a Fiat 500, would that have maybe not gone with the top choices then?
So from the very beginning, kind of our guiding star on all of this, our North Star was easy to buy, easy to own, fun to drive.
Right.
Those were the three things we were looking for. And if the survey had come back with something like, let's just say an S2000,
sure,
not easy to buy, correct, not particularly easy to own, really fun to drive, but right, doesn't really check the boxes. I think the place where we got the closest with that, and this is where the SCB gave us a lot of guidance, is that the Mustang was not as clear an answer as the Miata.
Right.
The Miata was clearly NC because of price point.
Right.
For the Mustang, there was a significant following for the later S197 that had the Coyote engine, 5-liter.
Right.
The people who've had those cars were pretty clear that that's not an easy car to own. There's some challenges with it. It's hard to buy.
Sure.
And because of its popularity, price is up, and so is modification in the used car market. So that's kind of what brought us. That's kind of what sealed the S197 4.6 was. Sure. It's very drivable. It's very fun to drive. It's a car that has V8 feels, but you can really wring the neck out and push it. So, I mean, I think if it had come back, with a car that we felt like had challenges in maintenance, right, or had challenges in availability, we probably would have acknowledged that, but moved on down the list a little bit.
Right. Before we get to the breaking news, because you've got some stuff to share that people are going to really, really want to hear. It is, I completely forgot. I'd lost I'm a little flustered because I had to do a technical difficulty fix here. If I have the car already and this whole process starts and I don't have all of the money to do all of the add-ons, the stock parts can still be run in the class, right?
You have to run the performance kit.
Okay.
So the performance kit for the Miata comes from MOTORSPORTS. It's about $4,200.
Okay.
That's Penske shocks, iBox springs and bars. It's all simple bolt-on stuff, but it is a sleeved coilover, so you've got a lot of tunability with that kit, and a great shock. And like I said, it's about a $4,200 get in the game price for that kit. The Mustang kit, I think, is going to price out around 25, 26, 28, somewhere around there. That's the classic Coney yellow. There's a couple of spring options that are, my understanding, there's basically different spring. The difference in the springs is the paint, and a pretty beefy bar kit that really makes that car work, camber plates. The reason that those are required, and there is a caveat on the Mustang side that you can run a Shelby GT or a Bullet with the OE equipment because it's real close to that. But the reason for that is that in an oddball scenario where you have, 4 inches of rain at Solo Nationals in the first 3 hours of the day, you might want to be on that softer stock setup. And what we really don't want is people having to drag an entire suspension kit with them to Nationals and feel like they need to be playing this game. It's one way go. Now, after that, everything is optional. The durability stuff, the hubs for the Mazda, the Panhard bar for the diff bushings and stuff like that for the Mustang. All the stuff that doesn't really make the car faster, but it makes it more reliable. It makes it feel a little better. Maybe there's an intake option. There's a muffler option. Somebody said that our muffler rule, which is basically you have to have a 6-inch muffler, was invalid because we could just have a straight pipe with a 6-inch carbon fiber disc around it, to which we would argue that's not a muffler.
Right.
And we're kind of trying to take a real common sense approach to this. If you read the rules, we say in a lot of places that commonly available parts are allowed. You can run a commonly available radiator or oil cooler, or it's not specific part number.
Sure.
So you can, And the reason for that is a lot of people are going to buy these cars with parts already on them.
Right.
The previous owner didn't build it the way that we might need or want you to. So we're trying to create some latitude in the places where it's not specific, but keep the performance kit really specific.
Got it.
And then, of course, the last piece of the puzzle, because you've got me on this channel, is the safety kit. And that's basically a copy paste from level 2 safety in the time trials program.
Okay.
Where if you add the roll bar, weight penalty,
right,
then you can do the fun things. You can do the seat, you can do the steering wheel, you can do the belts, you can do the things that lighten the car up a bit. And what we've found by and large, talk about Miata tops in a moment, is that the penalty of taking the weight of the roll bar is reasonably well offset by the taking the weight out of the seats. The Mustang in particular tends to have a pretty heavy seat, and it also has a seat that a lot of people don't really love. So going to the race seat does give you a little bit more feel for the car.
Sure. That makes sense. All right. So one of the reasons we wanted to continue the conversation from all of the other things you've done already is that you've got some new stuff to share. In what order shall we share this stuff?
Well, I'm going to go from least sexy to most exciting. Can I say that? Is
sure?
Where are we here?
Sure.
So it turns out that anytime that you write a rule set inside the bubble of some program boards and the board of directors and staff and some people who've owned the cars and some people who work for companies that build the cars and all those things, you're always going to stumble somewhere and somebody is going to find it. And we've had people write us some really great letters asking for clarifications, asking for things. And I'm going to start with a couple of things that we're not going to do and why, and then we'll get toward the things we are. So one of the very first ones is the torsion diff for the MX-5. It is used in the race car. It's a $1,200 part. And there is some concern in the community that the roughly $500 OE part is going to wear out. But we don't know that yet. And we know that there's not a lot of cars out there for sale right now with the torsion in it, and there are a ton of cars for sale with the OE in it. So our plan for the diff is to run the OE diff for the year, see what the results are, see if people are wearing through them, and see what kind of durability issues we're having there. And if we come to a place, and this is kind of our guiding light on all, that's my new phrase apparently, this is the kind of our standard for all these things. If this is going to be something that people are going to have to replace time after time after time again,
right,
then we want to make the upgrade. The upgrade is not about getting to the performance of the torsion. The upgrade is about keeping you from having to annually rebuild the diff in your MX-5.
Sure.
On the Mustang, it was a no-brainer. It's a carbon clutch kit. I think it's about $120 from Ford. No big deal. But a $1,200 investment in a torsion before we know that the factory diff is going to be a real wear item for the class. My suspicion is it probably is going to be a real wear item for it. But the reality is if we could keep the initial cost a little bit lower and get some more people involved, and then let them give us their opinion. What do they want of the class? So that's where we are with the diff. We did allow oil cooler for MX-5. We thought that might be something people would like to do. We did not allow radiator. And I'm not 100% sure why we made that. Actually, I am 100% sure why we made that decision. We weren't going to do either. And then we realized that SSC, which I'd referenced a few times before, Solo Spec Coupe, which is a class for the FRS and BRZ and Autocross, did allow the oil cooler. And we thought, well, if it didn't hurt anything on SSC, we can do it here. And then we learned that the only way to do an oil cooler on an NC is to get the radiator upgrade that has the oil cooler built into it. You can't really put it anywhere else.
Right.
So we are going to be going to the board and asking them to approve a radiator upgrade as well so that you can use the oil cooler upgrade. We also were made aware that the plastic overflow secondary tank for the radiator on that car is a failure point, and many people have already upgraded to that to an aftermarket metal tank.
Yeah, the aluminum tank and that.
Yep. And again, if you're going to have to replace it, let's replace it with something that's an improvement. It's not going to make the car faster, lighter, better. It's just going to be less maintenance you have to do.
Probably make the car
let's
heavier.
go ahead and get that one. And then my personal favorite one, we're getting to the big one, but my personal favorite one, again, right before we went to print, right before it was time, someone kind of raised their hand and said, hey, is it Mustang coupe only, or is it convertible and coupe? And everyone went, oh, right. Yeah, we should clarify that.
Yeah.
I've been thinking coupe the whole time. How about you? Yep, me too. Okay, we'll just put coupe in there and we'll be done with it. And bam, first question. Hey, can I do this with my convertible Mustang? Yeah, I mean, you should be able to. Yeah, let's do that. So these are all things that have not gone before the board for approval, but they're things that we have found as pretty docile, pretty easy to do. It's the right thing to do. We're not trying to do anything that cost people more money. We're trying to make sure that when you do have to repair or fix something, you're able to do it with a superior part.
So does the convertible Mustang require a roll bar to do it that way?
For track use, per time trials rules, a V8 convertible car that does not have documented factory rollover protection does require a roll bar install. So that one would need a roll bar. The NC, because it is a 4-cylinder built after 2005, a lot of nuance here, can actually run on track in stock configuration. You can't, but we obviously recommend. I mean, the whole point of the program is to give people incentives or at least no penalties for doing safety so that you can build a car to do multiple things. So obviously we're a big believer in putting the right safety in the car.
Sure. And honestly, and this is a complete discussion for another day that I'm probably going to do a podcast on, with today's modern sedans and all of the protections that are built in them, our roll cage configuration requirements are probably overkill in some instances, what we require on the road racing side.
I would love to have that conversation with you, not right now.
Yes, this is not the time or the place.
That is a great conversation to have because there's so much nuance in that one. We could do a couple of shows on it.
Yeah, we absolutely could. And they do it a way different than we do in Europe for that exact reason. And there might be some lessons to be learned there.
They do podcasts different in Europe?
No. The way they make the cages in sedans in Europe. You knew what I was talking about, smart ass. All right.
So you want the big one? We ready for the big one?
Yeah, I'm ready for the big one. Bring it on. Wait, I don't have a drum roll, but I should.
Well, I promise it's just a coincidence that you have a logo sitting right behind you right now. But
you mean this logo here?
That one right there. We are very, very, very excited to announce that the spec tire for Club Spec Mustang will be the Goodyear F1 Supercar 3 in a 275/40/18. Yep, get the hat on.
Hold on a second. You keep talking.
Yep. This kind of came to be through just a really strange series of events where
completely unplanned.
We had gone to Tire Rack with the wrong, potentially the wrong tire size in the beginning of the conversation. And so we were looking in the wrong chart, for lack of a better way of putting it. And when we finally kind of went to Tire Rack with a final choice, they're like, that's not the right size for the car. And we kind of had to start all over again. And the 275/40 is a taller tire than we were looking at it originally, so it's going to have the right look for a muscle car. It's going to be a little bit more meaty.
Sure.
The 275 width is great for that car. It's going to be a tire that gives you a lot of initial grip, but kind of also gives you that Trans Am slip feel that everybody's looking for in the cars.
Right.
And it's a 220, so that's durability is there, the street ability, trackability, autocross ability. It does all of those things very, very well. And I'm really excited that it's kind of the right brand for a Mustang. I mean, Goodyear and Ford. It's not just an American-owned tire. This is an American-built tire.
Nice.
And it gives us a chance to kind of deepen our relationship with the guys at Goodyear. And I know obviously you've worked with Jay and his team, and they're working in B-Spec right now. And it's, anytime that we can do more partnership, more activation inside of one brand, that lets us do more things, do bigger things, do them better. And I think I wish that we had realized that we needed to be in the right space at the right time to all along, but it's just a great fit. And it's really great to have Tire Rack helping us make those decisions, and having Goodyear supporting us in it. So I think it is also, not coincidentally, of the ultra high performance summer tires in a 275/40/18 it is the lowest cost tire in the category.
Wow.
So it's about 303 a corner right now on Tire Rack. So
Yeah. Still
good
not cheap,
durability, good performance.
but that's good. That's good, and you'll be able to use them for a long time. So I like that. Is the tire been announced for the Mazda?
So the Mazda is on the same tire as the SSC car.
Got it.
The
Okay.
same size, same tire, same brand. It's the Falcon is in a 660. In I believe it's 225 or 225 17. I have not thought about that tire nearly as much as the Mustang tire in the last 2 weeks. But that tire, when SSC first came out, they were on the 615 version of that tire, the previous generation, and that was a tire that had a little bit of a quick breakaway. It did not have kind of the slither characteristics that a lot of us love, and it created a little bit of frustration with the class initially. And I think the 660 has been really just a fantastic development in that product line. I have 660s on my track car and done some hill climb with it, and it's a long lasting, very forgiving. It's a tire that makes you feel like a good driver, and I think it's just a really great fit for a car of that size and weight. And I think that with the added camber that comes with getting the car a little lower to the ground, it's really going to come alive for people.
So, and the little I know about both those tires, they're both slippy enough that you can get them to break away, right?
Yeah, I think both of them. I refer to it as slither. Both of them, they're great to drive in a slither as opposed to a slide.
Right.
You can get any tire to a slide. Right. The really fun tires, in my experience, go from stick to slither to slide on a bell curve that tells you when you're getting to the edges of those.
Right.
And if all you can get the car to do is stick, you can't get anything but stick or slide, then that can be a really frustrating tire. And I think these tires have really great characteristics for that kind of slither space.
Cool. Well, that's awesome news. I like all of that. Anything else new, or should we go look at some of the questions that have been asked?
Well, I do want to talk about one other topic because it is it's kind of our barn burner at the moment, and that is Miata tops.
Okay.
The NC a little simpler than the NA and NB, which both came with soft top delete options.
Right.
The NC did not. Every NC came with a soft top. It might have had a factory hard top on top, but they all came with soft tops. And we're looking right now at what's the right approach towards tops with the Club Spec MX-5.
Got it.
The challenge is the probably most robust roll bar options for the car, generally speaking, utilize the space where the soft top lives to create more reinforcement, more strength.
So that won't work with a hard top.
It does work with a hard top. It works great with a hard top. Okay. So, but the question is, can you delete the soft top to put a better or a higher rated roll bar in the car, create more safety?
Right.
We don't want to tell people, no, you can't have the safest option.
Sure.
It doesn't feel like where we need to live.
Right.
We also don't want to tell people, hey, if you want to get to minimum weight for the class, go buy 2 race seats, 2 sets of sliders, 4 mounts, and a $1,500, $1,200 roll bar.
Right.
That doesn't feel like the right answer either. So what we're working on right now is getting the most accurate weights we can on all of these elements and figuring out if wording like installation of a commonly available roll bar that utilizes the space normally occupied by the soft top allows you to install that roll bar to manufacturer spec. So if the manufacturer spec says, take the soft top out, take the soft top out. If your roll bar says, leave the soft top in, leave the soft top in.
Right.
And then potentially something like cars are required to carry a top in competition. That could be the soft top, that could be the hard top. And the challenge there is that the hard tops from Mazda are not super easy to find, the OE hard top.
Right.
They have got a bit of an unobtainium reality around them. So it's tough to buy, tough to find. That's not what we're looking for. There is an aftermarket top that's sold through Mazda Motorsports at a lower price point, but it's very light. And it would potentially create a lightweight package, rules package for us. And It's not really intended to be a take it off on a sunny day and enjoy owning a convertible top. It's intended to be a bolted on a race car top. So we don't have the right solution yet. We're very aware of the problem. We're very aware that soft top removal is not being asked for in a make my car light. It's make my car safe. And we want to honor that and hear that and figure out how to navigate that. And in reality, I think what the community needs to understand about whatever this decision may be is that our goal here is to give people cars they can do everything with.
Sure.
That's the goal here. It's not to give ultra lightweight packages for certain applications. It's not, it's not to create an involuntary scavenger hunt of hard to find parts. So we're going to work on this a little bit more and try to bring something to the table that makes sense to fix.
Right. So the soft top roll bar option keeps the top in the car.
Yep.
And you can choose to run it up or down.
Yep.
And it's not you don't have to take the top out to be able to fit the roll cage, and you can't actually.
There are a number of roll bar products on the marketplace that work with the soft top. They're a little bit lower. And so, if you are 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", and you want to run in this class, you might want the higher bar.
Right.
If you want the higher bar, you're probably going to need to take the soft top up, put it in.
And is that legal?
Right now, the way the rules are written, it is not.
Okay.
That's what we're trying to solve.
Got it.
How do we let people add the safety that's important to them without inadvertently creating a pathway to a lighter, lighter setup?
My guess is that taking the soft top out completely is probably a 30, 40 pound weight savings.
Right now, we're definitely in. We are in guesstimates, but the guesstimate is about 45 to 50 pounds for the soft top.
Sure.
That the Mazda hard top is about 55 to 60, and then the aftermarket one sold through Mazda Motorsports between 15 and 20.
Got it.
So there's a meaningful variance between each of those.
Is there a ballast option?
We've talked about it. It's uncommon for us to require or introduce ballast in a class like this.
Sure.
There's also a reality, I think, that when you look at SSC, we've had some of the biggest margins of victory in SSC of any class in recent years. Because on some level, hard to believe, when somebody just outdrives everybody else, they win. And sometimes that's not about the car being 12 pounds lighter. So I think that there's going to be some difficult. This will be a difficult challenge to solve.
Right.
And there also may be and I also want to acknowledge in the difficult challenge to solve, we're also talking about 100% of this weight being in the worst place it can be in this car.
Sure.
So all of this is stuff that we're working through.
The one solution would be to require all the drivers to be in excess of 215 pounds. And that would make it perfect for, those of us who may have enjoyed life a little bit more.
Sure. Yeah. It's funny how that never gets really directly talked about in the car weight conversation, isn't it?
Oh, it does when I'm talking about it. It's I always tell people you could take as much weight out of the car as you want, but until I lose 100 pounds, you're not going to come close. Yeah. Stephen Burkett in the chat says, "Thank you for all the careful consideration on this. Agree to disagree on the muffler rules, though."
Stephen has written one of our best letters so far.
Compliment, dig.
Yeah, I mean,
no, that's good though. I mean, that's the way we do things, right?
Yeah. I will say that I think the more the membership and participation in this class understands that this is not. We used unusual phrasing at times in this. We talked about commonly available parts being allowed.
Right.
If we get to grid and there's 15, 20, however many cars in grid, and one of them has a widget that the rest don't, you're going to have to make the case that that's commonly available. You're going to have to take out the phone and show us where it is on Summit Racing or Tire Rack or wherever, where you found it. And if you can't show a pathway to commonly available, And commonly available is not, my buddy Steve has an LLC and he makes them and you can call them and order them. That's not commonly available. Commonly available is you enter a part number into Google and it takes you to a place to buy it.
It's commonly available is not, I fabricated it and I'm happy to give one to everyone who wants one.
That's exactly it.
Dang.
Yeah.
All right. All right.
So,
Digital Seance asks, how is the turn-in on the Goodyears? Do we know that yet? Do we?
I have not driven on them.
Okay.
I've talked to Doug Willie, who's on the TTB, is a huge fan of them. And he's run them on the LE1 Mustang, which is not a car that loves to turn in. So I suspect that Doug would have noted that that was a shortcoming.
Sure.
Sam Strand was a big fan of the tire as an all-purpose do all the things tire. Sam's never, ever going to be happy with just one tire option. He wants us to introduce a range tire, and that's something we can talk about further down the road. But really likes it as a dry use tire.
Yeah.
I think the reality is that both of these cars are going to have the right suspension set up to get the turn in that you want anyway.
Sure.
The tire's just going to optimize that.
Got it. Can we do some of the other questions we've got? You got some time?
Let's go. Yeah.
All right. Let me pull that up here. We've hit the spec tire. We've got through that. Let's see. Is there a PAX yet? Can't be because there's no data, right?
Yeah. There's been a little bit of speculation. There's a Pro Solo index that's built by a committee within SCCA of members who shall never be named. And then PAX is obviously done outside of SCCA. So we will get those numbers handed to us at some point in time. I suspect we're probably looking at, I suspect that the NC is going to land somewhere similar to C Street, maybe a little bit quicker.
Okay.
I'd have to look at some weight numbers and really understand. I'd skew it a little bit towards STR from C Street, but probably not far off of C Street. I suspect this car, if you really break down the S197, it is the car to have in F stock about 15 years ago.
Okay, fair enough.
And that's the suspension package. It's the Shelby GT suspension package made better.
Right.
So I would guess that it's probably going to be pretty darn close to modern F Street. Maybe a little bit off of it because modern F Street's gotten a good bit of horsepower over the last couple of years. But that car is really an optimized street class car more than a street touring car. So I think that's where I would guess, but those are just wild guesses.
Right. Jay Payne asked a question, and I've heard other people ask this question as well. Why the expensive shock spring sway bar package on the MX-5 compared to a lot of other options, but in particular,
Sure.
it's sounds like it's about $1,500 more than even the Mustang.
Yeah. So it's not what we initially envisioned. We envisioned very much like the SSC kit. And when Mazda Motorsports came to us and said, hey, what do you think about using the same parts as we have on the club race car? We kind of shrugged and said, yeah, I don't know that makes sense.
Right.
And then we kind of started having internal conversations around what is SCCA offering? What are these packages going to look like? And SSC is wildly popular. And I would say that if you are interested in the NC concept, but you're turned off by the cost of the kit, then I would take a really hard look at SSC. That's a great autocross class. Those cars go to Sport 5 in time trials, and it's a dominant car there in Sport 5. There's a whole bunch of people that have been doing that successfully for a number of years, kind of paved the way to this. So if that's your goal, it exists. It doesn't exist with a convertible, but it does exist.
Right.
So we've got Twin, right? That is a Japanese front engine, rear drive, 2-seat car. We've got NC. That's a Japanese front engine, rear drive. Okay.
Right.
And we've got Mustang. Well, that's different. That's American built. That's a V8.
Sure.
That's okay. So maybe we want to create some differentiation here. Maybe we want to create, a little bit of a gap, and maybe the NC being a little bit of a cheaper car to buy than the Mustang, it looks like, maybe putting a kit there that allows for a little bit of tuning, a little bit of dialing, a little bit of driver preference.
Right.
It's really not about having an expensive kit, and I'll address that in a second on the NC. It's about having unique offerings across this concept. You've got the twin kit and the Mustang kit are very similar.
Right.
And then the kit on the NC, if you want a little more widgets, it's about 12, 14 more for that kit. And it comes with a real race shock. It comes with real race springs. It's going to be a bit of a more nuanced car. It's going to have a different ride. It's going to have a different feel. And then kind of what really sold us on it was that if we're going to talk the talk of one car to do all the things, let's walk the walk. And the walk is having one kit that you can buy and put on your autocross car and autocross until you've worn out every set of tires in the world. You can throw some safety at it and go time trial and learn how to drive on track and develop some track driving skill. And then once you've done those two things, you're the head of the engine, some weight reduction, the rest of the cage, and you've got a race car.
Right.
You don't have to take a single step back in that process. And that's not going to appeal to all people, and that's okay. We have other options to appeal to more people.
And can you put the rest of the cage in and just go racing with it and still be able to come back to go solo and time trial?
You are getting into some 2025, 2026 theory.
I know,
there, my friend.
I know, but that's where my mind is when we talk about a multidiscipline race car.
So I think radical. So one thing everybody needs to understand is that because
here's where I'm at in my life. I'm an old guy who's about ready to kick the kid out of the house, rent out their bedroom, and use that money to go racing. And to be able to, and I'm sure they're on the other side of the wall yelling at me for saying that, but if I can go and use one car to do all of that stuff, that's really attractive to me.
So I think, and it's very important to understand that what I think has very little standing in our organization. What I can do is I can make recommendations to boards and committees and see if we can win some hearts and minds. But I think the opportunity before the club is one of two things, maybe both. The first one is that at some point in time, these cars are going to phase out. We're not going to run Club Spec NC or S197 for 20 years.
Okay.
Will it be 10? Will it be 5? Will it be whatever? I don't know. But at some point in time, the price of the newer car is going to drop to a point that it makes sense to transition to the newer car. All cars have lifespans.
Sure.
My garage bakes differ, but all cars have lifespans. It will make sense to rotate. So does it make sense to work with the CRB, Club Race Board,
right,
to say, hey, we've got about 400 people right now that have this car. And in 2 years, we're going to transition it to the next car. Do you guys want to do a spec racing class with that chassis? Because there's about to be a whole bunch of them for sale.
Yeah.
There's about to be a whole bunch of people or a whole bunch of people that want to keep doing it with their thing and go somewhere else. But that's one path. That's the one I'm less excited about.
Sure.
The one I'm more excited about is that the club has a limited rule set called Club Race Experience. And the Club Race Experience essentially is about short races, multiple races across the course of weekend, not a lot of real specific requirements on car preparation, and essentially a 13-13 rule, which is kind of thought of as a no touching.
Right.
And I think that, and going back to the idea of motorsports democracy, if we've got hundreds of people that have these cars, maybe we do, maybe we don't, but if we have hundreds of people that have these cars in 25 or 26, and we put out some surveys that say, hey, next year, would you be interested in doing some CRE racing with your car? Complete the cage, exact same kit, and we'll do some weekends where you get practice on Saturday morning, qualifying on right before lunch, a race on Saturday afternoon, and 2 or 3 races on Sunday. Is that 15-minute races, no touching, no national championship, no adoring fans. This is not, but just kind of go out with your buddies. And I think the endurance series have really shown the popularity of low key racing, and it's something that I think that this product could lend itself to. Now,
Right.
if we've got 25 kits in the wild and we're probably not going to put the survey out.
Right.
If we've got 500 in the wild and we put the survey out and everyone says, absolutely not, we're not going to force it.
Sure.
But if we can build a population of car owners that are interested in it, we should definitely pursue it.
Yeah. Chris Fairbanks asks, what's essentially, I'm going to pare down his longer question. What sets this apart from just taking an SSC car and going and using it in time trial?
So the difference is that this is an open allowance on safety equipment without penalty on the solo side. Right now, you cannot put a race seat in an SSC car in solo. You can put a roll bar in it, but you can't put the race seat in it.
So you can't get the benefit of being able to get the weight.
You add the weight without getting any of it out.
Right,
and that's not a flaw in the SSC design.
Right.
SSC was conceived of as an autocross class. That's the right way to build an autocross only class.
Sure.
And we did kind of informally go to the SSC community and their group and say, hey, this is an opportunity. Do you guys want to look at it? Would you guys want to add these? How would you feel? Do you want to add seats and bars to your car? How would you feel sitting in grid at nationals looking at a car next to you that has seats and bars? What does that feel like?
Sure.
What do you think? And there were some people that were definitely interested in adding more safety to their car. One of the most interesting parts of this survey is that universally across all of our programs, no matter which program you identified as being most active in when you took the survey, when we asked if you were interested in adding more safety to your car, the majority population said yes. That was I thought that was really encouraging for the whole concept. But by and large, the opinion of the SSC community was, let's wait and see how this plays out before we upset our apple cart for it. So that's the short answer.
Yeah.
I think if that question is what I'm thinking of, what he's getting at is kind of where are some other crossover points between time trials and solo? Does SSC create one of those? It absolutely does. The other really obvious one is that tuner on the TT side and street touring on the autocross side are essentially the same rule set. So if you have a car built for street touring, you have a car built for tuner.
Right.
And then the max category for time trials aligns really well with extreme street and cam. And you can get to it from street prepared and street modified rule sets.
Interesting. Chris Ragland is interested in using the car in rallycross. And I think he makes some good points that the suspension package and wheels might not be good off-road.
This has become the naysayers' favorite stone to throw, I guess. That feels like the right way to talk about the rallycross is a stone throwing sport, right?
Sure.
That's the whole point.
More stone kicked up, but I got you.
So when we conceived of this, we definitely were big on the idea that you could do this for rallycross. And, as is the case with anything in 2023, once it got to the internet, it was time to pick it apart and see who could be the smartest person in the room and find all the failure points and how would this ever work for rallycross.
Right.
And candidly, because it was just kind of an unfortunate soundbite, we kind of stepped away from pushing that side of it.
Right.
The reality is that we need to do some work with the rallycross board to figure out how to make these cars rallycross appropriate. And I am not an NC expert. I am not a Mustang expert. I am also not a rallycross expert. But my suspicion is that we'll be able to figure something out that's relatively achievable, like stock shocks and springs and OE wheels. In theory, if you're going to build the car, you're going to have the stock stuff sitting there. So you could theoretically get a little more ride height out of the car with the stock stuff, and going to the OE wheels would give you a rallycross, more appropriate rallycross wheel, maybe get some ride height out of the tire. Again, not an expert, not a doctor, did not stay in a Holiday Inn Express net last night. But I would love to see a way that we can at least create a pathway. And it might not be, it's unlikely, in my opinion, that the pathway is going to be take a car that's awesome on track and go drive it on dirt. That's not. I think we have plenty of highlights from the runoffs of cars going off of asphalt and onto grass, and that not going well.
Oh, too soon.
So there's going to be some changes that probably need to be made.
Yeah, and I don't know that you want to take your $4,500 suspension package off road, and risk either damaging or just wearing it out any sooner or faster than you have to.
Sure.
You could probably just put a little bit bigger tires on it and get your tires and wheels, get yourself some clearance.
Right.
But would that even, align up right? There's a lot of questions, a lot more questions than answers.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah,
course.
and again, this is where we're going to ask the Rallycross board to help us with it.
Sure.
In my mind, if you've got the shocks already loaded on the springs already loaded on the shocks, hour and a half, 2 hours maybe on the weekend before to swap it over to Rallycross setup.
So I don't know who Digital Seance is, but he or she is our prime target here. It's less likely road racing is at the top of the priority list. It's far more probable to get into this than time trials, and if we get addicted, we'll then want to go make the budget to go road racing. We got this person. Hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah, and I think, the key to this whole thing in my mind is just keeping those pathways open.
Yeah.
It's resisting and this will happen. This is going to happen. It's going to happen. We're going to get the letters that say, hey, can we put the 2.5 in the NC? Man, that car's great with the 2.5. Hey, what about Aero? Can we do Aero? Hey, what about, and I think it's really, really, really crucial that we hold the line
right
to modifications that make sense, that create accessibility. There are tons of classes right now that you can run a 2.5 Miata 2.5 NC with Aero.
Sure.
We don't need to make this one of them.
Right.
And we need to keep this in a place, approachable, obtainable, and hopefully something that we can add some more chassis to as we go forward.
Well, and there's nothing that says someone can't do this for a couple of years and then put on that Aero and dump in the 2.5 and go to another class.
Right.
They've already got the bones ready to go for that.
And they're probably glad they bought those good shocks.
They're probably very, very happy that they bought those good shocks. Is there anything...
Which I should say, that is not in contrast to the Mustang shock. That shock was the reason that we ended up with the Mustang package that we did is because that is the favorite autocross car of so many people.
Right.
People who drove that car, who drove an S197 4.6 on Conies with the Ford factory sport springs in F stock. That was one of the best cars you could have as an autocrosser in the mid 2000s. Just no way around it. And this kit to me is reconnecting with that. So I don't want there to be any sense that there's a contrast in this one got a good shock, this one got a bad shock.
Yeah.
We put what we believe to be the right parts on each kit.
It's kind of a throwback Thursday kind of feel, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah. For all of us old farts.
They say you can never go home again.
What have I not asked you that I should?
What we're going to do next.
What are you going to do next, Heyward?
I have no idea.
No, what's the next step as far as information that we should be waiting on?
So we'll have we have to get board approval on all the things that I've said we're going to do.
Sure.
But we have kind of vetted that with the TTB and the SCB. They're both on board. And generally when you have program boards on board, then it's pretty easy to get to the board level. I'm not going to say that we feel really good about it, but Philip Royal handles our content for us, and he went ahead and posted the article that'll come out on Sunday that says it's all good before he went on vacation. So we're hoping that it's all good before Philip gets back. So Sunday is when we'll officially make the next round of updates.
Got it.
We'll probably have some more discussion on tops through the holiday and into the week after. I'm really hoping that we can solve that by mid-December and give people the ability to buy the safety they're looking for with confidence. But we're just not quite there yet.
Yeah.
We will have some announcements coming out of PRI that we're really excited about. So stay tuned for that. There is a Club Spec Facebook group. It is not the only way to learn about Club Spec, but it's the best way to join the conversation. So please do join us there.
Well, and that's where most of our questions came from tonight.
Yep. And then I think we'll see Solo and Time Trials make official statements of classing and classes existing sometime in late December, early January.
One other request was for bodywork allowances for tow hooks on the Mustang. I
got to look at it.
Yeah. I figured that wasn't one.
Definitely we need to look at it.
So it's apparently you have to cut cut the body to make that happen, and people
Yep.
want that to be approved. So,
Yep.
there's gonna be a lot of little stuff like that.
Oh my
will
God,
get thrown at you guys.
yeah, and it's what I love the community
Right.
for bringing us these things, because we can't know them all.
Right.
And there's the folks that their hobby is catching us in everything that we got wrong, and then there's the folks that want to make sure that we got it right.
Yeah.
And I appreciate both of them in their own unique ways.
Sure.
So,
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I apologize for our little technical snafu. Technology is what it is. But I look forward to continuing the discussion. This will be exciting. And which one are you building?
well, right now, I don't know if I can say this, but
are you building one of these?
I'm not building one personally at the moment.
Okay.
We do have a partner who has been mentioned on this show who is building a Mustang.
Oh.
And we have another partner who has been mentioned on this show that I think is going to be building the Mazda, but I'm not sure. We only knew about one of those until about 2 days ago. And so SCCA was going to build the other so that we could have a pair of them, so that if we were going to go somewhere with a partner and do something, we could have one of each. But I am currently crippled by indecision on this one, because I really, really loved driving the Mustang back in the day. I'm one of those people that has super fond memories of that. I drove with Mike Wood for a couple of events, and it's just a great car. And I think that's probably the one that I would go towards. But there's a really good chance that my next autocross co-driver is going to be on a learner's permit, and I'm not sure that is the right droid for that. So we'll see.
Well, the reason why I was asking is because if you were looking for a co-driver at Nationals, I'd volunteer for either of those cars.
I think they're just going to be so much fun to drive. I'm so excited about it.
And if your partner's if the partner who's building the builds needs a co-driver, I'm in. Well,
I'm not saying you're wearing the right hat. I'm not going to say that. I will not say that you're wearing the right hat. That's not a clue. That's not a hint. That's not being said by me at all.
I got to make a call here. Yeah, that would be. I would love to try one of these out at Nationals. I think it would be a ton of fun. So, thank you, sir. We'll connect again down the road, and I look forward to see where this whole thing plays out over the next couple of years. It's a great concept, I think, and coming from a guy who hates new cars and new classes, that I had to really bring myself together to say that. So, and I'm seeing a lot of love in the chat for guys above 250 pounds. So, let's bring it on, folks. All right, that's going to do it for another episode of Inside the SCCA. If you like what you're seeing or what you're hearing, make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit the like button and the bell and all the other kind of stuff I'm supposed to say, even though I'm too old to say that stuff. Also, subscribe to the RacingWire Podcast Network if you just like to hear it the old school way. Leave a comment, especially if it's a good one. Follow us on social media to find out who our next guest is. On Twitter, it's RacingWireNet. There's a new Inside the SCCA every week. I'm Brian Bielanski. He is Heyward Wagner. Have yourself a fantastic weekend. Stay safe and go have fun with cars.
Hi, I'm Dorsey Schrader, and this is Inside the SCCA.
Inside the SCCA is a presentation of the RacingWire Podcast Network and Rule 15 Productions. This podcast is not affiliated with, endorsed, or sponsored by the Sports Car Club of America. The views expressed within are those of the host and our guests, and not that of the SCCA.